efficiently. Yeah, we're really excited about the webinar today.
Yeah, awesome. But let's get going. So we start with the agenda of how we'll start the webinar.
Yeah. So it will be a short intro first. Then I will talk more about how you actually take this budget that you have received and have the approval from the C-level and the executive team, and actually look into how you plan your marketing mix, what type of assessment you can do, and how you really turn it into something you can execute on, and not something just that somebody calls you every month to say, are we hitting the budget or not?
Yeah, and then I will jump into some iOS updates on Facebook and also TikTok, how that affects you, and also how you can go around it to keep improving your sales for next year. And then we finish off with some Q&A. We got a few questions lined up even before the webinar. But if you have any more questions, feel free to write them in the chat, and we'll take them up during the Q&A session.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and I think also one more thing that it's good to mention as well, that this is part one of our series about how to execute on the budget, and we will in the end also mention the next part 2 session that we will do in January, and we will do it together with Funnel, and I think that will also be a very interesting webinar to follow up on the initiatives and key insights we will share on this call.
Yeah, but let's jump in. And yeah, how are you, Jonas?
Yeah, and so I typically spend a lot of time with some of our global e-commerce companies. I help them out with strategy, looking into assortment analysis, working with them how to select new countries to launch, and work more on those kind of workshops together. I think that is a really exciting types of discussions,
yeah.
And we see that there's a lot of more companies asking about these kind of services. So yeah, it's a really fun day job I have, and happy to have Johan joining in on today's call as well.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm doing mostly lead generation, but also a lot of social media ads and strategy for our clients and other companies. And it's more like, how can we get the best performance out of the social media channels, like for example Facebook and TikTok. And yeah, and who are Keywordio then?
Yeah, so like Johan mentioned, we are a performance marketing agency. So we typically work with Facebook, Google, TikTok, and those types of channels. But like I also mentioned, we also help out with specific projects around setting budget, how to pick your next market to launch in a data-driven way, how to look into more advanced assortment analysis to see where you should expand the assortment. So we really have a wide way of working. And you can also mention some of the key aspects in terms of the partnerships we actually have with these big channels.
Yeah, so for example, we are a premier Google partner, which give us great workshops and insights of how we can improve our clients, and also general Google ads of Google Shopping. We're also a marketing partner, which will help us also improve the ads, and we get more training. We can organize webinars with Facebook and get some insights into our clients' accounts. And similar for TikTok, so we're a TikTok marketing partner here in Sweden, and it gives us benefits of other, like if you would run your TikTok ads by yourself, we will have a few more details and benefits of the ads, so like for example targeting, but we will get to that later.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's jump in.
So what do we see as the challenges of tomorrow for online marketing? We really see 3 major forces that are a challenge for everyone who's running an online business today. We have the increase of cost per click, the marketing cost. We have extreme challenge to actually find competence. For example, we just did a review of our own hiring for this year, and we have had more than 20,000 visiting our career page. We have had more than 5,000 people applying to our open positions. And I believe this is the only way to find the talent of tomorrow to be able to grow a company with really high specialized competence. And then, of course, product margins is a challenge because the more we see of the marketplaces that are out there, more price comparison, of course, that is pushing margin a lot as well. And everything here is actually built on a foundation on the new world on privacy, which we will talk a lot about, like how does the iOS updates 14 and 15 affect how you actually track and measure and improve your efficiency in the channels. And none of these are going to go away. Everything will be even tougher tomorrow. So if you don't do any improvements on what you're doing today, you will have a really tough situation in 6 or 12 months. So continuous improving to solve all of these challenges. That's what we see in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
So when it comes to budgeting, we see actually 3 quite common mistakes when it comes to planning and executing on marketing budget and plan. So the first one is that we often see a disconnect between these 3 different areas. So typically you get a sales budget. Maybe it's say, hey, you should grow 30% year over year, or you should grow to this amount in these countries, or this part of the assortment should grow to this. Then you get the profit and loss budget or the cost budget that you get from the typically the management team, or if you're a part of the managed team, you're a part of setting that. But we often see that is not always connected all the way down to how can you actually work with the individual channels, and how do you actually turn that into how much traffic do we need, how much traffic do we need from each channel, and do we have a connection here so that the person, for example, or the agency that is running Google Ads, for example, in one country knows exactly what's the high level target is, what is the cost of sale, so you have the connection between all of that. So having this with one-click access to everyone who needs to know it is something we see very often is a clear lack, and is a disconnect between sales budget, P&L, and traffic budget. So that's a great opportunity to actually make sure that everyone has access to it. The second area is that we see that many people misunderstand distributions. And when I say distribution, if you look at the left graph over here, so this is the cost per click that I mentioned. Typically you can see, if you look at Google or Facebook, you typically see that cost per click can rise around 10 to 15% year over year continuously. But it also varies over the year as well. So expecting higher cost per click, which will also have a distribution. So sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. So looking at a standard deviation here to understand that. And that's the same thing if you look at conversion rate, for example. So if you say in your plan, in your traffic budget, that you will have a conversion rate of 2%, for example, then if you have 2.1, is that just luck, or is it natural distribution within that natural conversion rate that you already have? So expect distributions is something that is very important. And the third one is, of course, it's attribution. So how do the channels contribute to each other? What channel has a time lag, for example? So if you spend on top funnel awareness on Facebook or on TikTok, you're not going to get sales from that the same day. That's going to take a couple of days. And with everything that is happening with iOS, which we'll talk a lot more about later, do you have a good way to actually follow this up on a top level? So if you have a drop in revenue, if you go into Facebook Business Manager, do you still have control of the total cost of sale in an efficient way, so you can still work on improving, even if the measurement in the individual channels still has a challenge? So understanding that, and sometimes you do big marketing mix double once a year. I'm going to talk some more about how you can do this more often and more efficient. So those are the three areas that we see. So how do you actually solve it and make sure that you are more efficient in executing on your marketing plan for next year? So like I mentioned, expect distribution. And many things today, you can assume that it's a normal distribution. And what does that actually mean? So you have a mean value. So in this case here, you have 0 in the middle. And then if you say that we expect to have a standard deviation from this, plus minus 1 standard deviation, that means that you are within 70 or 68% probability the outcome will be within that space. So this is a good application you can use to see if you can build something. So you see, is it an outlier that is definitely something has happened outside what we expect, or is it something we have done that is actually really affecting the results? So we have outside the 1 standard deviation plus minus. So using that when you plan and follow up your budget is something that is very important.
Yeah.
Like you see, so if you have the orange dot here, you just are lucky to be in the mean value or the benchmark value, or if you are 2 standard deviations away, there is actually something that needs to have happened. You have done something really good, or if it's a metric you don't want to have too high, you have done something really bad, and that is something you really need to act on. So not acting within, for example, plus minus 1 standard deviation, because that's sort of within the expected distribution anyway. So being more clear on how these values are expected to vary is important. So if you look at just a simple breakdown of what we call the sales equation. So a simple version is that you have traffic, you multiply that by conversion rate, and you multiply it by average order value. Then you have gross revenue, for example. But like I said, all of these parameters have their own distribution. So if you look at each one and you calculate the distribution, and you see that the actual outcome, so let's say here on traffic, you are 1 standard deviation above. On conversion value, you are spot on. And on average order value, you are plus 1 standard deviation. Well, does that mean you end up plus 2 standard deviations on revenue? It might be, but this gives you guidance on saying, hey, we have done something very good because it looks very promising on average order value and traffic. It seems like we're sort of within expected range for conversion value, but continuously working with this and looking at the different ranges so you understand where you are is something that is important to focus on the right areas. And you can do the same, you should do the same for the cost of sales equation as well. So the simplified version, if you look at all the traffic that's paid, multiply it by the cost per click, for example, and then you have divide that by the total traffic times conversion value or conversion rate times average order value equals cost of sales, right? And those also have distributions. So being able to estimate that, include that in the budget, will give you a better and more robust plan than just going by exact numbers. So if you look, for example, at Daniel Ek and how he is managing Spotify and the whole team, listen in on some of his calls, because I think many of the quarterly calls they give are really, really good. They're very interested, and if you look at what they also always do is that they always give guidance. So they pick up the most important things in terms of what they want to communicate to the stock market: monthly active users, revenue, gross margin, and operating profit. They always give a guiding range, and this is also, of course, they have distribution in all of these parameters. That's also why they give a guiding range. And I mean, even if you're a performance marketing manager, CMO, or a CEO, it makes sense to work with guidance, because then you know if you are within range or outside the range when you are collaborating as well. Because if you are really outside range on gross margin, then it's more clear to say this is probably a focus area for us to really zoom into and work all hands on deck to solve. So I think Daniel Ek and Spotify is a great example of how you actually use distribution and give guidance instead of working with fixed numbers in terms of setting a plan, following up, and improving it. So how do you actually do it? Yeah, of course, you need to combine your sales budget with the P&L and also break down profit. With that, adding on the distribution for the most important parameters like average order value, conversion rate, and cost of sales, for example, and planning that for the full year. So, like I said, I expect many of you who are on the call today that you already have your approved budget, but I think there's a lot of the budgets that are not planned this way, and it's gonna not be as efficient to follow up and running them through the next year if you don't have this. So this is a great exercise to improve your setup and planning for next year. So a different set of perspectives and how to distribute the budget, because let's assume you have the full setup, sales, P&L, and also into traffic. Then, for example, take a step back and look at where do I distribute the budget according to a customer journey. So do we need to invest more in top funnel to build more brand awareness, for example? Or are we still too low in terms of visibility in the lower stage of the funnel? So should we start there? And of course, that's based on where you are in terms of cost of sales in total. So taking this perspective is often very important. Another set is to take a step back and look at seasonality. So make sure that you have the seasonality effect planned in as well. And of course, yeah, we are in the zone of the most important month for many e-commerce companies right now. So being able to include the seasonality in an efficient way, expect higher cost per click, and make sure the one who did the budget has an expectancy of at least 10 to 15% increased cost per click for next year. So we at least have space for that in the budget. Product releases. For some companies, Black Week is not the most important thing. Some companies are really focused on big releases. So if you work, for example, within telco, and you know that the iPhone releases from Apple will be spike in traffic, and the spikes is actually higher than you have during Black Week. Does that mean you will run more sales? Could be or could not, but being very aware of budget distribution, if it's not seasonal, maybe it's product releases related. And of course, these can be really hard to plan for, because Apple is not saying like, hey, we're gonna release the new iPhone 14 in August. But putting that in is often very important. Another way is to actually look at the assortment. And this is just an example of how we do more of the deep dives and assortment analysis. Some companies need to focusing on profit or profit on ad spend. Some companies have more of a lifetime value focus if you have recurring customers. And of course, for some companies, just top line is the most important thing. But breaking down the budget based on assortment, and here, each dot here is a product. The size of the dot is the revenue. And then we actually measure cost of sales, ROAS, versus how you actually price the product compared to your competition. And then you can identify areas where should we spend more on marketing, should we spend less. For example, in B segment, we have a very low price compared to our competitors on the market. But, well, the return on ad spend is not where we need it to be. So you should probably switch the budget here, for example. So doing these kind of insights is something that is very helpful and is very important for planning the budget for the coming year. Then we come into the channel mix. And I mean, if you run MMM studies, you typically do that maybe once a year. It takes a lot of time. You get the insights, you get the big picture. But what we have seen, and specifically now with the iOS updates, I mean, if you see that you drop in revenue of 30% in Facebook Business Manager because you're not able to track it like you used to be, then doing correlation analysis where we actually pull all the data from all channels and make correlation analysis that can be done continuously, very fast, to get a first indication of how the effect is coming. So you don't need to wait for your big MMM study to come out and actually be a lot faster. It's not going to be as accurate and it's not going to measure everything, but have a faster indication of what is actually working and not is something that we see is very, very important here. The last focus is to actually take a step back and look at if you work with a lot of different countries, of course, distributing the budget based on country. And what we do is that we typically help companies to actually collect data on demographics, collect search patterns, look at different social behaviors in terms of that country, look at some unique offers for that specific company. And then we build a score for that company. So we can say that Sweden has a high score here and Holland is a high score, so that should be a high priority, because many times the priority for different countries is based on legacy and somebody that just said let's go into this country, and understanding if it's a new country that is just launched, is it launched within the next or the past 12 months. So because that country will have probably a cost of sales that you cannot compare to the current markets. So working with these types of scoring to allocate the budget in different phases of the country. So in launch, growth, or it's a mature market. That is also helping a lot in terms of allocating the big budget down into different countries or regions. So how do we actually avoid the challenges with iOS going into the next year?
Yeah, so it's actually quite a few steps that you need to plan and quite a few things that you can do to avoid it. And so I will actually jump into it. But first, most of you have seen this when the iOS 14 came out, and you could choose not to track or to track. I choose to track because I like ads, but I assume most of you didn't. But for the newest update of 15, it's already pre-chosen for you, so you can't. When you update it, it will be allowed not to track. So if you really want to see ads, you need to go into your settings and change it. And this was like a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And as you might have seen, a major drop in your revenue and numbers disappearing, etc. And this is also tracking data backwards. So if you have your reports and you compare them to like August compared to now, you might see a big difference in revenue on, for example, Facebook, which is quite scary. So that's why it's really important that you take into consideration what Jonas went over there of cost of sales. So calculate the clicks, because the clicks will be the same, but the revenue will be different. And then you need to really focus on the sales funnel. Where do I allocate my budget, etc. So you like the cost of sales. Maybe you need to change your strategy on the new customer versus what you did before. People might not be as strong, and if you do lookalike pixels, etc. So a good example of audiences that you can run. So lookalike is a great example, and it's been working really well for a long time. But if you have issues with your pixel and tracking, a lot of people are opting out, you can't actually track people who purchase or need to check out and things that happen on your website. So what you can do is you can create lookalike audience of people who have engaged with your ads or the page or etc. action on Facebook. And of course you can try them out, and I suggest you should try as many as you can. And usually don't go over 3% because then it gets too inaccurate. But these are a few of the custom audience, lookalike audience that you can create lookalikes from. And I tried them all, and for some companies they work better than others. But again, you need to test it yourself to see which one worked the best for you. Then it comes to custom target audiences. These might be a little bit inaccurate because something I liked 10 years ago, I might not like anymore, but then you need to test this again. And for example, on Facebook, they have a very good targeting option. So you can test people who like audio, for example, live in this town, for example, Åre. They like skiing and downhill mountain biking. They prefer iPhone, and they like this clothing brand. And when you run new ads, you should test one at a time until you see, okay, this one works, this one works. Then you can start grouping them up together as one person. So this person drives an Audi, he lives in this town, he likes skiing and mountain biking, he have an iPhone and also wear these clothes. And then you can test this against the lookalike audiences and see which one performs the best. And when it comes to TikTok, they have the targeting is very broad. You can't really target on brands, etc. if you create your own account. But luckily, Keywordio are a TikTok marketing partner, which give us like a benefit over others. So we can choose more detailed targeting, which helps our customers perform better on TikTok, for example.
And I think also, I mean, there's a lot of companies that build the buyer personas from a creative perspective, and I think also that building the personas in a data-driven way is actually what we're talking about here.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually feeding this back to the creative team, so they actually know more that who are we actually talking to, because I mean, all the paid social channels is it's a lot about creatives and content, and what's the tone of voice and how you actually speak to them. Of course, if you don't speak to the right person, that's a challenge, right? So feeding this back to the creative team or the creative agencies is very important as well.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you run an ad to this specific custom audience, and you can see they like snow sports and downhill mountain biking, and you run a beach volleyball ad, that might not be so relevant. So your ads might not perform so well. So you need to, as Jonas said, tailor your ads towards who you're targeting. Like if you tailor your ads towards someone who reads Vogue, maybe if you got a review from Vogue, that can be a great thing to mention. And then it comes down to setup. This is especially for Facebook or Meta, that you really need to set up your aggregated event measurement. And what is another step of the pixel. So you need to verify your domain and set up which events are the most important for you, and you can rank them from 1 to 8. And if you need help with this, just let us know after the webinar, and we're happy to help you. And then it comes down to the funnel. So this is very important of how you build out your ads. So before, you could pretty much push a lot of new ads towards prospects that people don't know and had really good result, and same, you follow up with a funnel. And you could pretty much only do like conversion ads, and it did really good results. With the new iOS update, you need to think a little bit further and work with Facebook's own tools. So I will show you a great example of how the ads can look like. So here we have for prospecting or awareness. We have 3 very different ads, but for new customers. So on the right hand side, we only have a video that displays products and what we do. No CTA, nothing. People can only watch the video, and this type of person is probably not ready to buy yet. If he is, then he go to Google or find a way to buy it. But this is the way of show your products and your brand into new customers. Then we have in the middle, it's the people who are ready to buy now. You have the product in a carousel or a catalog, and you have the brand and also the price of the product. So if I want to buy gloves now, I see them and I scroll through maybe a few. Here on Facebook, I can press shop now and I have them within minutes. And hopefully next day they show up in my door. And then we have on the left, which is a little bit more creative. It's probably for the people who are not really ready to buy, but is somewhat close. And then I show my ad, which is very nice. I've seen it maybe on TV, on other platforms. And then underneath we have the products that can be displayed. They can look around in the catalog and get a little bit inspired. Some people buy there, some people might not. That's why we come to the next step.
But I think interesting here is that on those types of ads, right?
Yeah.
The pixel collects a lot of data and insights that you can use for retargeting later.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, everything from all the video metrics that you can collect. I think that is so important to understand, that really filling up the pixel as much as possible, because that investment it will pay off later the more data you have on it.
Yeah, exactly. And as I'll come to later, like, you will need to use Facebook's own tools, and say with TikTok, to do the retargeting. So when we come to the consideration stage, this is for people who have engaged with your brand, people who watched the videos on the step before, or clicked on your ads but didn't buy, or people who've been to your website, or people who follow you on Instagram or Facebook, etc. So these people might have seen you a little bit or a lot, but they haven't bought something yet. And some people might be ready to buy right here. So we have pretty much the same ad as before on the left, and then on the right we have a carousel that displaying a few products. But also it's good to highlight happy customers, so referrals or like reviews of your products, because this can be like an extra verification for a potential customer to buy your products. And we've seen pretty good success in this, and it can be from customers or magazines or something similar. And then we come down to the last stage, and this is you really worked the customers within the platform's tools. And then we have the conversion ads, and this is for the people who have added to cart the products. So if I added to cart just those gloves or a few gloves, but I didn't buy it, of course I should see a conversion ad. And sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to track these people, because this is outside of Facebook. And then it's with the collection ads, if they click them and watch the products, you can retarget them with the catalog ads here within Facebook own tool. But we also recommend you use your CRM system or email marketing system to back up the data. And that comes to how to use Facebook own tool. So of course you can use the engagement type of retargeting, how much they watched of a video. If you saw like you had a really good video that people watched almost till the end, you can use 95% of retargeting. Or if you have a little bit broader, you can use 25. Also, if you do a lot of lead generation or want to increase your newsletter list or member list, you can use the lead generation ads instead of conversions, because then Facebook can track people who clicked the ad, went through further down the line in the lead generation ad, but didn't submit it in the end. And then of course, on your end, it's very important that you sync your website with both Facebook and TikTok. Same with the CRM system. And then come down to the last step, use UTM tags, because this will be very important. As Jonas mentioned earlier, if I don't see that all the revenue comes from Facebook, maybe it comes up at direct traffic, UTM tags can be a great way of seeing it in, for example, Google Analytics or Funnel or other like tools where you track your data.
And I think like what you're mentioning about the CRM system, I mean, regarding privacy, I mean first party data, all the data that you actually own yourself, it's very important that doesn't matter what marketing channel you work with, feeding that back to those algorithms is going to be crucial for all of them, and that is also not something that will go away. I mean, you collect that, and of course feeding that back is going to be crucial to understand your customer better.
And if you have any questions about this or need any help or suggestions, just let us know, and we're happy to help you with syncing the website or the CRM system and helping you set up the UTM tags. And then we come to the next event. So this was a quite short one. So it will be a follow-up with Funnel in end of January, where we dig a little bit deeper into iOS, but also how you can track everything down the line with tools like Funnel, for example, and also how to follow up on the marketing budget that Jonas went over.
Exactly, because like we mentioned, today has all been about how do you actually plan and set the plan, but do you actually have everyone in your team? Do they have access to with one click to access to all the data, so you can look at cost of sales on total level breakdowns? There is a lot of companies that lack that, and that is what we're gonna show you how to do that. I think it's gonna be a great webinar with a lot of extra value, and also some templates afterward to actually nail how to daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly follow up your now perfectly planned budget with distribution and guidance.
Yeah, and we will send out an invitation to everyone who came today, and you can also find it on our website. And then, yeah, thanks so much. We have a few questions here. Let's see.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is our email address, but we'll send the slides afterwards. So if you have any questions, just take the email addresses and hit us up afterwards. So let's see the questions we got. So with the events, so when you create a lookalike audience, I forgot to answer that. So if you need to create a lookalike audience, for example, in a country, you need to have at least 1,000 events per month. So if you do a lookalike audience of purchases, you need to have at least 1,000 purchases a month in this specific country. So if I have less, what should I do? So of course you can go higher up in the funnel. You can go add to cart if you don't have 1,000 purchases, or view content, or page views. But if you don't have 1,000 page views, I usually recommend to run a traffic ad with the objective of landing page views until you get 1,000 events per month on that specific country. And what channels see the largest impact from iOS? Well, Facebook is probably the biggest one I've seen. Or what about you, Jonas?
No, but I agree, and I also, like you mentioned, I think about actually losing historical data as well. That is just one more way to actually, I mean, if you go in and then 1 week later you look at the same time period again, and then you just see that you have lost revenue in that, then of course it's so important to have the total cost of sale control, because the money was there. If you look at it in the past, right?
Yeah.
But I would say all the paid social channels expect to have challenges for them in terms of the data from the channels. So TikTok, Facebook will definitely be in this area, and it's probably going to be tougher in the future as well.
It probably pop up for Google soon as well, for the retargeting ads on Google. Since Google is a customer acquisition, so like people are looking to buy there. So if they search for something, that the iOS won't affect. But if I've been to a website and I do the retargeting Google, it might be affected soon as well.
Yeah, and I guess also, of course, programmatic and different affiliate setups, of course, they will also wrestle a lot with the iOS tracking challenges. But a simple way to just assess this yourself is just to go into Google Analytics, select and evaluate how much traffic you actually have from iOS for the most important countries, and with that you just have an estimate in terms of how affected you think you will be. And we know, for example, markets like US is big on iOS. Android is growing fast as well, but it's assessing the traffic from what device it comes from.
Yeah. And then how can I increase my sales with the right ad setup? So as I showed earlier, or described, you should always experiment and try things. So you can start out trying like conversion ads, video ads, and catalog ads for new customers, and then you nail it down a little bit in the funnel further down. So I say all customers are different, and something might work for one company, but might not work for the other. So this one, we need to actually get a better understanding of just your company. Just email us and we'll help you with this question.
So iOS impact on influencer marketing. I would say just assess it the same way. I mean, evaluate traffic volume that you see coming from that, and evaluate how assume that it will be affected, and being able to keep the top level control, because I mean, just because you can't measure it in the channel you are looking at, it is not going away completely. So continue doing smart experiment is really the key here.
Yeah. And so we got a question from Olof. So we take you after these questions, so you stay tuned.
Yeah. Cost per click or CPM is very low on TikTok, and why is that?
Well, it's quite. If you look back in Facebook and Google when it was new, it was very cheap. Like the cost per click was like $0.1 or 1 kroner, or it was extremely cheap.
Yeah.
When those platforms started doing the advertising platforms. And same with TikTok. It's a very new platform. So it just launched earlier this year, their ads types. And for them to be competitive, they need to probably arrange them a little bit cheaper to get the same results while they're building out their programs, etc. And that's probably why it's so cheap. Like, I'm not sure why, but that's kind of, if you look back on the history, all channels have been very cheap when it comes out.
Yeah. We have done a lot of big studies on this, but can you just share some rough numbers in terms of CPM for Facebook, Instagram in Sweden compared to TikTok? Like where are we roughly on those numbers?
So on Sweden, we've seen CPMs, if you run really good ads, so our best performance is around 3 kroner per CPM, which is like $0.03. And on the top range of the ads that haven't been performed so well, was about 10 kroner, and if you compare that to Facebook, it's around 100, so it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
And CPCs, it's been very cheap when it comes to Facebook. Like our cheapest one, the platform said 0.0, so yeah, it was very good. But on the top range, it's been around I think it was 6 kroner per click.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit more expensive, but these ads were not tailored, so we did like a test of running a non-TikTok ad, which was like pure, like it was not good for TikTok at all.
No.
Used to see how expensive it could be, and that was the test came out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like always, of course, make sure that creatives are tailored both for the audience and also for the channel, of course.
Yeah.
So how do I divide my marketing budget? Of course, it's a really general question, and based on what we talked about, I think it's important just to segment like where you are. You're multi-brand, or direct to consumer, one market, many markets. What is working? Are you a new brand, or have you been in the market for plus five years? But continuously doing experiment and adding in these kind of, I mean, if you are a mature brand, then continuously working with the correlation analysis to really assess the channels continuously, even if the individual channel is dropping, is really the I would say the most important way to continuously doing that.
Yeah.
And of course that relates to the marketing mix modeling study that is done annually, and of course, still doing it, still get the big picture, but find something that is faster and more continuously is very important. And I mean, just doing multi-touch attribution studies, it's also going to be a bigger challenge with iOS updates as well. So that's why we think that the correlation analysis is something that is continuously efficient, and it's not based on challenges that we see with these areas here.
Yeah. And then we have a question here in the chat. So can you please elaborate between the goals linked click versus landing page views? So a good example here. So linked clicks, Facebook's AI do everything they can, or people, to click anything on the ad. So you pay for all the clicks. So it can be a like, it can be the CTA, it can be comment, it can be anything on the ad that's displayed. if you click landing page views, you actually only pay per landing page view, and Facebook do everything they can for people to stay on the landing page, and that's why we usually recommend people to choose landing page views over clicks. However, if you targeting are on point, the clicks one can be better, and that's why you've probably seen lower landing page views or cost per landing page views. So you've probably done a really good job with your marketing there, but usually we suggest for people to use landing page views while they build out their audience, and then they can change over to conversions. And yeah.
And I think it's a great question, because it's really going more into the deep understanding of what data do you actually fill the pixel with, and assessing that. I think it's always very important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that was all the questions. We also have a little
bonus,
special. Yeah,
like always.
Exactly.
Yes.
So one of our customers, Houdini, have been very nice. Hopefully you've seen the ad here on the left, but if you haven't, they have given everyone who attended today a little Christmas gift, so you can get 30% off on your Houdini order. And again, you will get this slides and presentation afterwards, so you can just copy paste the code on your checkout for Houdini, and yeah, it's a great discount for great products.
Yes, really, and we are both skiers, and of course this looks like a perfect way to spend the day, and I really love some of the latest products that they have just released. And in terms of thinking about circularity and the long term for the environment, I'm really impressed by the work that Houdini is doing, and you should definitely check them out for the Christmas gifts for this year.
Yeah. And it's Houdini Sportswear, not Houdini, because then you go to the magician shop. Awesome.
Cool. Thank you all. I hope you got some new inspiration and ideas, and look forward to see you on the follow-up on the marketing plan in January, together with us and with Funnel.
Yeah, and have a good Christmas and New Year's Eve, and I'll see you next year. Bye.